the slide.
Yes.
My new funky impression of a virus, which looks to me more like a clangers planet. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's how old I am.
Oh my God, the clangers. I love the clangers.
Right, so just respiratory viruses, we were talking about them earlier on. Just a heads up, I suppose. Essentially, here's the rhinovirus line. So we've got, this is from this time last year all the way through to now. And you can see how the different viruses have peaked and as time goes on and so on. Rhinoviruses, which is essentially the common cold, are surging at the moment. So that might be what a lot of people have got. Some of them who might think they've got COVID or the flu, actually there's an awful lot of the common cold around, and that's what's being indicated there. As you can see, last year it peaked at below 20%, and we're nearly up there already. So this might peak quite quickly and tail off again as we approach the end of the year, but it might carry on going up. We'll keep an eye on it. The pink one is COVID. And as you can see, we were at the lowest point at the beginning of this year with COVID, and that's gradually been building up and up and up. It's no longer doing this big spike, but it's gradually becoming more common in these particular tests. And it went up in the last few weeks. So it's definitely still around. There's definitely plenty of it around. So it is certainly quite reasonable to suggest that you carry on protecting yourself against this virus. For the majority of us, it's only, like we said earlier, a relatively mild common cold type symptom thing. But for some people who are vulnerable, and it's always been, and it still is, age related, over 75s in particular, if they get it, they tend to have a harder time and end up in hospital. So that's still worth talking about. What is it, 5 years? Nearly 5 years since we first started talking about COVID. It's still out there, and it's rising slowly. It has yet to peak on this track, so it's been quite interesting to watch it. Flu, no sign of flu happening this year yet, but typically flu, if we look at the sort of green, will shortly begin to rise. This is what it did last year, and usually peaks around the end of the year, but it hasn't begun yet. And RSV is normally this is what you catch off children, and what a lot of children catch at school, and we get the same sort of peak. They've gone back to school, there's a huge spread of RSV, and then it peaks, and it's gone by the beginning of next year. No sign of that actually doing anything this year yet. And I do know that there is the vaccine for this is now available. I think it's for the over 70s, over 75, something like that.
75.
So, and it's because it was starting to become significant in the elderly. Technically, you're elderly if you are 70 or above.
No.
Well, I'm hanging on to this because that makes me still middle-aged. So
am I.
So that's the trend that's going on, and we'll carry on tracking that month on month. A couple of events coming up. One with particular reference to this group. Dr. Chris, the lead clinician of National Aspergillosis Centre, will be coming on to this group possibly next month, possibly the month after, but I'm thinking next month more likely, to hold a discussion around the currently running clinical trial where we give Interferon-gamma to people with CPA, and are assessing it as an alternative treatment to antifungals. It's doing quite well, and some people in this group have had this who have run out of other options to treat their CPA, and it's been relatively successful. So we're assessing it more formally now, and there's a trial running. This is still a limited size trial, so it's not the last trial that we'll be running on it, but part of running these trials is that you come on and you discuss them. The people running the trials discuss it with groups of patients and ask them how this they think this might change their life if it proves successful, and other things like that. He's going to give us a talk about what this treatment does, about what we know about it, and what we're doing to test for it. So that will happen next month probably, and it will probably happen at 2 o'clock rather than 1 o'clock because Chris is heavily involved in clinic on Friday, and he hopefully will be able to come away earlier to do that talk. I imagine it'll take half an hour to an hour to do that.
The
Which would be
next one
interesting.
after that will be the Christmas quiz, won't it?
Well, that's it. So I'm thinking he's only got one opportunity, and it's the next one. So it's probably going to be the next one, but I will talk about it on Facebook and in Telegram when I get a definite date of him. Another group of people who want to come and talk to us are this company, Argenx. I think you pronounce that Argenx or Argenx. Are rapidly developing a new treatment very similar to a biologic, but it's targeted at, literally physically targeted at mucus plugs in our airways. So clearly the major group that have this problem are people with ABPA. And they've described it to me, and they've done a lot of work quite rapidly. They haven't tested it in people yet, but they're about to test it. There's going to be a phase 1 trial next year, about the middle of next year. And what it is an antibody designed to attack mucus and mucus plugs and the components in the plug, which make it all sticky and make it stick to your airway walls. So that makes it difficult to cough up. And they're hoping that attacking these particular constituents of mucus will make plugs easier to cough up. They do have some evidence that supports that this might work, which is why they've carried on with the development of this. And this is quite a new approach. Like all research, you have to involve patients, and the obvious group to come to is this one to talk about ABPA. So they want to come and talk to us about their projects and their work and get your feedback. Essentially, it's not my feedback, but your feedback on what mucus plugging does to your life and what relief of that might do to improve the quality of life that you have, which I would think would be quite considerable for some people. This one probably we decided it's probably best to run this on a Thursday morning because we tend to get more people on a Thursday morning meeting, a lot of whom have ABPA, and everybody else is obviously invited to join. And I'll also circulate advert for this meeting, so we want to get 10 or 20 people in to come and listen to what they've got to say, because they're going to give us a talk about this project and then give their feedback. So the whole thing, I would imagine, will take an hour or two. We can run on afterwards after they've left and have our ordinary meeting if that's needed. So 2 things: people want to come and talk to us. That's because we're so impressive and important.
Of course.
Naturally. I'm sure a lot of you noticed in the news during the week, and I thought I couldn't let this pass without mentioning it just a little bit. There's been an amazing new treatment developed for Huntington's disease. It used to be called Huntington's chorea, but it's now called Huntington's disease. I happen to know, because I'm a geneticist, and this is a genetic disease. I happen to know there's 50 years of genetics gone into understanding what the genetic defect in Huntington's disease is, and how it contributes to the early death that these poor people suffer. They get 2 copies of the same gene. They tend to die around age 30, 35 with brain issues, I think it is. It's a horrible disease, and it's one of those things that you have passed on the genes to your children before you know you're at risk, especially in the past. So you could be faced with a situation where your children will also have this at the rate of about 1 in 4, and their children, and so on and so on. So it's a horrible thing, but this whole area of research, I mean, it's taken 50 years to get to this point. They've highlighted a group that who are in the UK who finally done the amazing clinical trial that was done this year. But to work out how much of the essentially what happens is you've got a bad gene, and if you have too much of the bad gene product, you get the illness. But if you have a good copy and a bad copy, you've got enough of the good gene to not have the illness, though you will pass on the gene to your children. And what they've done is they've found the people who are suffering from Huntington's who've got 2 bad genes, and they've worked out how much of the good gene to give them to improve their life. And they have to do that safely, and they have to do that in the right place. So it involves an injection into the brain of these patients of essentially a virus which is carrying good genes, which will infect brain cells, produce just enough of the product, the good product, to correct the problem with the bad gene product, and correct it safely. And the amazing result, and we very rarely talk about success in clinical trials as amazing as this. A 70%, I think it was 70 to 80% improvement in the symptoms, and a delay in when the symptoms start, and so on. So going from, you can imagine, just off the top of my head, I might be wrong, if you were talking about 30, 35 years of age, with the 2 bad copies of this gene, with a 70% improvement, you're talking about potentially reaching your 60s, 70s. It's an extraordinary success. What this means is for us is all this technology can now be used for all people with genetic problems. In principle, they have to work out how to do it safely in lots of different ways. So we know that there are some genetic issues that cause ABPA or contribute to causing ABPA, and so on. So this technology could well be good news for everyone with any genetic defect that needs correcting. And we know some of those can cause, are involved in asthma and so on. So there's beginning of yet another revolution in medicine, essentially. So it's really good news. Right, your questions. How much time have I got left? It's 5 minutes. Okay. We talked about some questions last month. One of the questions from somebody was that when giving biologic drugs out to patients, who makes the decision who gets the drug and who doesn't get the drug? Is it about money? Well, how is the decision made? Well, to cut a long story short, it's not about money. There are the NAC go to a huge amount of effort to make this process fair. They're very expensive drugs, thousands of pounds per patient per year. They have to look at how well the drug works for a given person or a given patient. And sometimes this is done by trialing with the drug first before offering it permanently. You need to have evidence from previous clinical trials, and you set the clinical criteria to target those most likely to benefit from those. They actually do a calculation measured in quality adjusted life years, or QALYs. The more impact it has on the patient, the lower the number of quality adjusted life years you get. And that is from this calculation, they come out with a cost per QALY for an individual patient. And if that cost is less than 20 to 30,000, you get you get the drug. If it's above it, your access is restricted, although they can also mitigate that situation as well. So it's not a definite no, but it's definitely a problem if your quality threshold exceeds the general guidance. Types of criteria. Well, these are the different types of biologics, aren't they? I wrote this a month ago. I can't remember what I meant by this. These are the reasons why you get them. If you meet the criteria, the NHS can fund the treatment. If you don't, it's normally not available. So these are the. So you must have severe disease. I think we were talking about this earlier. If you've got ABPA, you must have a severe disease not controlled by standard therapies, so steroids and antifungals. You must have high blood eosinophils or IgE, which most people here would have with ABPA, but not everybody, but most people would. And then your symptoms must be relatively out of control, so you're getting frequent visits to hospitals, and yes, so your disease must be, the standard treatment must be starting to fail or not be as effective, and then you will meet the criteria and you can fund the treatment. More uptake does not mean immediate restriction. If you need more, it's about the difference it makes to your life rather than the actual amount you use. The NHS gets very good prices with lots of these drugs. As more evidence comes in, we can adjust the criteria, but when you use the medication, the benefits are weaker in practice, then criteria may be restricted. But it is done fairly and logically. Future, more biologics are coming, more what we used to call generic drugs, but biosimilars is the word used for biologics. So the more you produce, then prices may be cut, although it's quite hard in this area of medical production. NHS directories are, if we use these in these types of drugs in the NHS, we're collecting data much better than we have ever done before, and we're carrying on doing that. So we can tell how effective these things are much more powerfully than we could before. And if long-term savings, if we're looking at all that data, we're seeing fewer hospital days, access may be expanded to more people because we're saving money, because we don't have to admit them to hospital, like that type of approach. But we must balance against all of the health needs. So the NAC sets the rules up front. It's not a case-by-case rationing process. The criteria is severity plus likelihood of benefit plus cost effectiveness. Access may change as prices fall, evidence grows. We always discuss your eligibility with your specialist team if you wish to try this type of drug. Okay, we haven't got time to do that. Why does aspergillosis come back? Let's go right to the end. Lots of reasons. Do I have a key messages? Why does aspergillosis come back? Relapse is not unusual in Aspergillus disease. It doesn't mean the treatment has failed. Regular monitoring of your progress of your symptoms is vital, and early restart of antifungals can help protect lungs. Are there more? No. I could actually do that full talk at a later date, but I have run out of time. So